Lee Ash, fabulous to see you today, and thank you so much. I know you're a busy man, but thank you for taking time out to chat to us in our Little Chats Big Stories series. I'm trying to sort of play it cool, but I've known you for many, many years, Lee. We've worked together on lots of projects, but for anyone, the unlikelihood that anyone watching might not know who you are and what you do, over to you, mate.
Yeah, so I'm Lee Ash, and I'm the brand guy. So it feels like I'm a fraud saying that I've been doing this 25 years, but 25 years, it's unbelievable. Half of that as an art director, so I was in ad agencies working on big brands doing their campaigns, and then the latter half going more holistically into brand. So anything that involves brand, whether that's the values, the personality, the identity, anything that entails, then I help to realize that for businesses and clients.
And when I first met you years ago, and I think that came up, and it was obvious, but back then, that brand and everything that meant to you and your clients was really, really, in your veins. But as time's gone on, because you'll still meet people at brand, that's your logo, right? But what, has your job got easier or harder, or is it just about talking to the right people who really understand what brand is? In fact, tell us now, the interpretation of what a brand means.
Yeah, well, I think just go back to your previous one. I think it's harder in a way. A few years ago, you did have within businesses marketeers who that was their job. It was their job to make sure everything was on brand. So you were dealing with more of those types of people. So it was easier. It was harder in that there was a real high level of expectation then, because they knew what great looked like. And you had to be able to work with those people and understand where they're coming from and understand the brand. But I think, as time's gone on, there's maybe less of those people within businesses. So you're trying to explain more of what great looks like to people who it's not their day-to-day job. They bring you in to be the expert on brand. They don't necessarily know what a great brand looks like or what it sounds like. So in many respects, a little bit more difficult, a little bit more challenging for those reasons. But I mean, times change, and I suppose you have to adapt with the times.
Yeah, and I suppose, do you find that a lot of brand decisions come from here rather than here? I mean, I know you do. We haven't got time to go into detail of the workshops and things you do with clients, but what sort of are those triggers that you think, okay, because you've got to get to the essence of what a business is, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of the times the clients will be thinking more with a head, and maybe more on the financials and targets and what they want to achieve with the brand. And it's an interesting one with brand, because true brand, it's funny you sort of saying about the heart, because true branding is kind of to the audience, is a gut feeling, So you kind of have to balance those two things out. There are objectives, there are things we have to do, there's a way we have to act, there's a way we have to look, but then we also have to be mindful, and this is where I have to pull back a bit on how is the audience going to perceive this brand. And it's not often that they perceive it with the head, they perceive it with something in here that really hits them and says, I want to, work with this business and this brand.
So just to give me, again, not to give away trade secrets, because I know you and you the team at Walktoll, this is what you do very well. But when a company is sort of thinking, I think we've got an identity problem, or we're growing and we have different fonts and photos and styles and messages, how do you kickstart that conversation? What sort of questions are you asking people within a business to start this journey of aligning everything and developing a brilliant brand?
Yeah, and it's a great question, and it's very. I think this is where brand is very thorough, and I think this is where it kind of catches people out sometimes. You said something earlier about just a logo, which we can kind of come back to in a bit. But when I'm in those boardrooms and I'm speaking to the decision makers, and they're telling me that the warehouse don't speak to the design team, and the design team don't speak to logistics, and everything's disparate, then I'm asking them, what's the mission, what's the vision, what are the values for the business, and is everyone, if there are values, have they ever been articulated to the wider team? as staff are being brought in, as they're being taken on, as this been a major thing of the interview process, these are our values. Do you align with these values? And this is the vision. This is where the business wants to go. And we need you integrally to be part of that journey to that growth. And 9 times out of 10, the answer is no to those. So that's where my kind of journey with the client starts. It's really going back to that. It's understanding what the business is all about, where they want to be, and then doing the kind of creative stuff, if you want to say, after that. We do the real solid foundation work first and then build on that visually.
Yeah, and do you find sort of businesses, it sounds like they'll find this a cathartic process, and I know over the years you've done lots of brilliant work with us and helping us when sometimes we've strayed off the path and bringing us back in. Do businesses love this journey? I suppose they find out a lot about themselves, do they?
Yeah, those few days kind of at first where it'll essentially be workshops. So we'll have all the key stakeholders in a room, and you also realise that actually business, when it's booming and it's going and it's running, that takes over everything, and you find that actually, the directors, even if they've worked together for a long time, they could even be friends, they've not actually come together and really sort of got back to the basics of the business and what they're there to do and why they're doing it. So these workshops are a breath of fresh air, every time we do it, and they're tough, the long hours, there's a lot that goes through, but yeah, when that work gets presented back, which is essentially everything that's come from them, it has to be authentic, it has to come from the people I'm talking to. When they deliver that back, unpackaged and or packaged up, should I say, and correct and the right terminology and focused, then it's just, they're blown away every time. And then we say, right, based on this, everything we do now on the brand or the rebrand or whatever it is you want to do has to come back to this, which makes that second bit of the process a lot more streamlined and a lot easier as well, because you're not just into colours and pretty pictures. Even though we might have a strong rationale, if we can demonstrate it and say, this is what we've discovered and this is what you've said your business is, so this is why we've done this, then it makes it all joined up then.
Now, when you and your team have gone through that, and then you're coming to the, I suppose in a way externally, what seems the exciting bit, which is the pretty pictures and the fonts, and again, without wishing to give away trade secrets, but how do you bottle that energy and that real passion and the ethos as a business into what font's going to be right, what colorway is going to be right, what style of imagery?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it comes from, I'll be honest, the personality, and there's I'm saying this very kind of glibly, I suppose, but there's a full day session on personality where we can really get into the personality traits, and everything kind of comes from that. So if you've got if you've got a client who is a very strong personality, one way or the other, they're the rebel, for example. I've done some work recently for a rebel, which is a joy, because there's not many businesses or people that will say we are the rebel. So then everything has to be on that. You can't say you're a rebel and you do things differently and you stand out in the market because no one's doing this, and then do something, you can't use Helvetica as your font if you're the rebel, for example. So all roads lead back, so it's all evolving. Every step's leading to the next step. The typography, the color palette, the image style, the tone of voice. Tone of voice is massive, depending on your personality. So it all kind of leads on.
But what sort of advice would you give as a starting point? Because I absolutely get what you do. A lot of that plays into what we do as well. But it can seem a bit of a minefield, a bit complicated. What should people be doing if they're thinking, I want to get some sort of alignment, or it feels we're a bit disjointed?
Yeah, they just need to, I'd say, go back to the basics and don't think visually, don't be thinking we need a new logo or I'm getting tired of those colours or whatever. Actually, that's the last place you want to be thinking. Go back to the basics, and the very basic that any business can do is, what's your mission and what's your vision? And that, as the very start of anything, will give you everything you need to then know how to push on.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Lee. And in terms of, inspiring and being inspired. Who gives you the fuel, and who makes you, still loving what you're doing 25 years on?
Yeah, I mean,
Maybe if you wish,
well, I mean, my parents have always been my biggest cheerleader. They've it's kind of fundamental to it. Whenever you doubt yourself, they've always been like, you're great. There's some people I've worked with in the past, David Bailey, who I know, Adrian Bentley, your good self, 100%. We've had many a drink and a meal, discussing business and work. But the kind of famous one that I always go back to, I suppose, is Jim Rohn. So I still find him ultra inspiring. He just talks in such a great way about not just business but life, and keeping upbeat and keeping focused, and things aren't going to go right all the time, but it is life. But it's not the things going bad, it's how you deal with the things going bad. That's kind of the key. So, especially in business, you kind of got to keep that mindful and put it into perspective. So, Jim Rohn's great, as well as, some of those past guys, Andrew Alty, these people who I worked with very closely for years and have always been, there, never negative, always, we got this.
And last sort of question for me, Lee, in terms of inspiring people, it's the elevator pitch or the chat in the lift, and you're in the lift and someone gets in and goes, wow, you're Lee Ash from Walk Tall Creative. Love what you do. I'm starting a business. I'm growing a business. I'm about to sell a business, whatever part they're, and I'm worried, Lee. I want a nugget of inspiration when this lift opens. I'm going to take with me with a extra bit of wind in my sails. What's that one line? What's that one bit of advice that you would give someone?
Well, I think it would be amiss of me not to tie in with the Walk Tall thing here, and I think it's in business, no matter how big or small you are, you need to walk tall. You need to stand out from the crowd. You need to be bold. You need to be brave, and you need to be who you are and say, "Here I am." And I think that sort of ties into Walk Tall Creative quite nicely.
Yeah, and wear more pink shirts, maybe.
Wear more pink shirts, especially for you.
If only we'd have known, we could have had a wardrobe change. Lee, how can people get in touch with you? We'll put your contact details anyway in the description. But if people want to start this brand journey or have a chat with you, what should they do?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you can drop me an email, lee@walktallcreative.co.uk, or if you visit walktallcreative.co.uk website, you'll see a little bit more about me and what we do there, and you'll see some case studies. Actually, I've refreshed some of the case studies there on branding and campaigns, so you can have a little look at that and give me a shout if you want to have a brew, chat about anything. No obligations. I'm happy to meet up and have a wax lyrical.
Fantastic. Lee, thanks again so much for your time. Really enjoyed chatting to you, and thanks for all the great work and inspiration you've given us over the years.
Thank you very much, Rob. Likewise.